I have done this particular study with many of my students, and the idea is always I would like to always accomplish two things when I do this with my students. First, the precise calculation of variations for both sides, meaning finding best moves for both colors. But equally importantly, to develop that desire to continuously try to refute your own idea, your own move. Right? So that you want
Okay.
to figure out everything that is in the position that may mess with your plan. You want to weed out everything to perfection. So, on that
Yeah,
note,
that's something I need to get better at.
well, hopefully I'm presenting the perfect practice scenario for you first up. So, you are white, the pawn is going
Yeah.
upwards, and our job is to win this game.
Okay.
And feel free to calculate out loud or share with me lines as soon
Okay.
as you see anything
So
that is worthy of sharing.
yeah, so my first thought is to play. Well, my first thought was to play bishop f6, but it doesn't really do anything. My next thought was to play bishop d8. So the f6 was just because it's a check. But then bishop d8. The reason being is that like the rook can't like if I want to promote that pawn, the rook can't like travel across the fifth rank to attack it, but it can go to the eighth rank to attack it.
Okay.
And like say
Yeah, you go.
like if it was black's move now, I suppose it could want to go to the. I suppose it could just block on the seventh rank actually. So I'm maybe. Yeah, I'm just like thinking out loud, but basically, if I went bishop d8, the rook could just say, "Well, that's fine, I don't care," because the pawn isn't on the seventh rank, the pawn's on the eighth rank, on the sixth. So I can just go rook h7, and you can't push to a7 because I'll take it. So
Actually, I
that
can.
doesn't work straight away. Oh, because then I can play bishop b6 check, and whatever the king does, I can go to a7 with the pawn, but then the rook then says, okay, now I can go to h8 and block. So now you really can't go there.
Well, hold on, hold on. So bishop d8, rook here, a7. You take, you give check, and you are going to pick off my rook.
I actually went bishop before the pawn moves. But yeah, that
That's
that that move order change
this is
does.
the line I told you. I called you. You said you can't go here because the rook takes, and then I
Yeah, no,
countered
you're right.
that.
You're right.
Yes,
You're
you
right.
can, because then you have
Yeah, that's a
check.
good point.
However, you
Yeah, that's
actually
a very good
can't
point.
in the sense that that still doesn't win because I pick off your last pawn.
And then I'm like, I've got a bishop and
You
that's
have
it.
not. You need to
Okay, yeah,
win this. But scrap
yeah.
everything, or more or less everything. I mean, we discovered a fair few valuable motives, in particular checks with the bishop. But I'm afraid that your mindset when we jumped into this was already that, like, I'm trying to say
Black's
that
going to react to my
you are
threat.
trying to be super clever, not trying the obvious because you knew that something was afoot. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, why wouldn't you
yeah,
try a7 first? That doesn't make sense. Like bishop d8 threatened with
yeah,
nothing. a7 is threatening to win the game next, right? But in a way, it was
yeah,
cunning
yeah,
because it almost like it was a that reverse psychology where you know that this is meant to be right, but you know that this is a puzzle, so it has to be something more complicated.
yeah. Okay, yeah, good
But
point.
the
Yeah, okay.
ultimate
So
wisdom is that you always start with the most forcing move. Now you could argue that that's the
mm,
check. So if you want to start there, I'm happy. But a7 seems
yeah,
to be the more to the point forcing move.
mm, yeah.
So
Okay.
let's begin there.
So a7, and then if the rook goes to h8,
Mm-hmm.
we can give the check then on f6.
Five.
And if the king takes on d3, we take the rook on h8,
Oh yeah, sorry.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
whatever happens next, whatever the king does next, we get a queen. So
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
worked. That line worked. So if a7, the rook can give a check
That's what I thought you said
on.
then. That's why I corrected your f6 to f5.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the rook can give a check on f5.
Yep.
So it doesn't fall into our plan. That's a tempo move. And then after I move the king to e2, say, then the rook can slide up to f8 and say, aha, I still defend the a8 square.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a7, rook check on f5,
Mm-hmm.
king to e2,
Mm-hmm.
rook f8, and then now what do we do?
Well, you have already done
Oh,
the
okay.
best thing you can, which is to not to stop. That was already a
Yeah,
win.
yeah,
That you didn't stop
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
it
exactly.
doesn't work. So tell me what we do.
Yeah, exactly. So now we have, because the king's on e2, now we do have this bishop to f2 check. We also have bishop to f6 check.
Right. One of them is gonna
Because
do the damage.
yeah. So because the rook can't move off the 8th rank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I can go king c5.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
If you go king c5, I give a check on e7 and win the rook.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you
But then
conclude the line.
well, if you go king c5 and I give a check, then you can go king b6 though.
Doesn't matter, Ben. Like there's a pawn left on the board, buddy. If you win the rook, it's over.
Ah, yes, okay, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, nice. I'm with you.
Right. So we have dealt with a7, rook h8. We have dealt with a7, rook f5, rook f8. Is there a potential third defense for black?
Yeah, good point. Okay, so a7.
Maybe it's gonna be a sub variation in one of the main variations.
Yeah. Okay,
So let's still look at this.
so rook f5 check, king e2. Let's just stick with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly do. We won't change white moves because everything we did
No,
was
exactly. It
winning.
worked. It worked. Okay, so king e2.
We tried this. Any other legal move for black?
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything to do that's not just that. Like I'm trying to see if we can even allow, because sometimes in these like you can allow the opponent to queen, but then do something, but I don't think we can allow the opponent to queen in this line,
No.
in this position.
So you're actively
Not with a
looking
rook.
for checks or stopping the pawn. That's it. That's what you're restricted to.
Yeah. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, thank you. So we've got rook e5 check, which I just completely missed.
We do, indeed.
Okay, that's good, because then when we get the rook to e8, it's on a light square. So rook e5 check, king d2, getting out of any future checks from the rook at least. And then we go rook e8. Now it looks pretty safe for that rook, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's annoying because now it's on a light square, so what now?
Yeah, it is. Okay. So I think maybe we need to get the bishop to b8 then.
Please tell me
Because
how, and we are done.
Yeah, exactly. Because the bishop is on the dark square and the a8 square is light, and so if we're going to try and promote to that square and the rook's on the e8 square, it seems like that black solved all their problems. So how do we get? I'll just try and get the bishop to the b8 square for a second. So we're on d2 with our king.
Yeah.
So let's say. Uh, Okay, so bishop f6 check, and let's say king c5, as you said before, and then we play bishop e5. The rook can't take it.
Yeah. You are correct
The
about
rook
that.
can't take it.
Is this a forcing move, Ben?
No, it's not. That's the problem.
Correct. So let's rewind the tape. Let's try a different check instead of bishop f6 check.
Okay, well, we can play bishop f2 check.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
But then, okay, so bishop f2 check, and the king. We've got our king on d2, so the king has to come to like. Oh, yes. Okay, the king being on d2 is a magic move. Okay, so that's really cool, actually. So when the bishop goes to f2, the black king only has one legal move. So we forced it. We forced it onto the right onto the h2 a b8 diagonal. So king goes to e5. We give a g3 check, and then we get bishop to b8, and we win the game.
Right. So the way how you communicated this last line and the degree of enthusiasm in your voice is exactly the type of excitement and exhilaration and joy that you gain from figuring out your opponent's best defense, and you know you have. Like when you have, you have, right? Like right, you are where you're sitting right
Okay.
now, that I just figured this out to the dot.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when you refute the best defense, then you feel like you are invincible. Because it feels like there is no secrets left in the position at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you could
Very good.
explain it to someone who has never seen a chessboard in their life because you're so all over it. That's what you just
Yeah.
did there.
Yeah. It's a
And
very good
it's very
point.
satisfying. Like it's a great pleasure for a player to have that very confident feeling that I have seen and calculated everything they can throw at me, and I have my response to
Yeah.
every single one of them. And by the way,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah. Exactly.
beautiful composition, a very light one where there's so much going on with so limited material. It's really
Yeah. It is.
awesome.
It is. It's very good.
Yeah, and
I
indeed the
like it a lot.
star variation is this one. I will play it out. When we have the check here, the king has to go here, check again, king wherever, doesn't matter, and see ya,
Yeah.
and the queen.
That's so good. Yeah. I love that. That's very nice.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I've only just in the last few days, like, tasted a little bit of that, like, satisfying experience that you just mentioned, because I've just started like trying to like massively reduce the checklist I have when I'm making a move, because I just was never really doing it, and I've just taken it all the way down to like counting how many checks each of me and my opponent has, and even just knowing that I'm not going to be surprised by a check is a very satisfying feeling. And like, so this is like that on steroids. So yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
I see the
Exactly.
point.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. I thought it was a goodie. So we will stick with it, and every now and then we'll throw some of these in just to work on
I
this
like it a lot.
particular
No, yeah, thank
skill.
you very much.
My
It's
pleasure.
a good example.